The divide and rule formula was part of the British strategy to control India and other colonies. The British used to implement the formula of divide and rule everywhere. Things changed in India after the 1946 elections. Jawaharlal Nehru became the Prime Minister and Vice President of the Executive Council. He was equivalent to the Prime Minister. On 12th of September, Nehru wrote a letter to the Army Chief and Defense Secretary demanding important reforms in the Indian Army. The purpose of these reforms was to bring balance and fairness in the army. India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, implemented multiple reforms in the Indian Army to prevent military mutinies. The objective of these reforms was to ensure the Army's loyalty to the country and its democratic system. Nehru removed the Army Chief from the cabinet and placed the post under the Defense Secretary. The concept of martial law was also ended, and recruitment was allowed from all over the country. Salaries of Army personnel were reduced so that people are discouraged from seeing a career in Army as the best option. The Army was reorganized into 4 commands, each under its own commander who was promoted by the Defense Ministry. Today, India has 7 commands headed by lieutenant generals who have equal status. Even the Army Chief is equal to them. This system ensures that the Army Chief cannot take any action without consulting all these commanders and cannot act on his own wishes. The Indian government implemented several reforms after the partition of India to curb military mutinies and protect its democracy. Jawaharlal Nehru, who intended to transform the Indian Army, ended the post of Army Chief from the cabinet and placed it under the Defense Secretary. The reforms ended the concept of martial law, cut Army salaries, and organized the Army with equal status commanding officers. The Army Chief works in consultation with these commanders and does not have the power to impose martial law, appoint commanding officers, or conspire for military mutiny by getting loyalists on his side. The Intelligence Bureau of India is responsible for monitoring Army activities and reporting directly to the Prime Minister, and is also the country's top intelligence agency. The head of RA can be a bureaucrat or expert, not necessarily a military officer, and its staff is not just comprised of Army personnel. The Indian government established separate forces for the protection of the Prime Minister, President, and nuclear assets, which further reduced the possibilities of military mutiny. These reforms are historically called coup-proofing of the Army, which has limited its ability to impose martial law while maintaining its security responsibilities and sanctity among the public. Nehru took several steps to ensure that the Army could not impose martial law in the country. One such step was reorganizing the Army's command structure so that no individual or group had too much power. Promotions, pensions, and financial matters of Army officers were also overseen by the Defense Ministry, not the Army Chief. The Intelligence Bureau of India played an important role in monitoring retired Army officers to ensure they were not conspiring for mutiny. Nehru also reduced the protocol and VIP status of Army officers. Before independence, the British Army's commander-in-chief used to reside in a grand bungalow in Delhi. After independence, Nehru shifted the Army Chief to a smaller house and took over that grand bungalow himself, demonstrating his intent to reform the role of the Army in democratic India and curb the possibility of military mutiny. In 1957, when Nehru visited Army headquarters, it was revealed that the Army had political ambitions. General Thimayya was the Army Chief at the time. Nehru saw a large map with 3 compartments. General Thimayya told him the first compartment had the Army's war plans, the second compartment had different information about senior Army officers, and the third compartment had plans to overthrow his government. The revelation disturbed Prime Minister Nehru, and a long silence ensued in the room. This incident underscores the importance of reforms in the Indian Army, even before the partition of India. Nehru and his team aimed to maintain a balance between the army and political classes, and their efforts were successful.